All right. I'd like to call the regular council meeting to order for February 20th, 2024. All members of council are present, including our two youth council members there at the back. So welcome, everybody. We acknowledge that this land is the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of the First Nations, comprised of the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi peoples, and of the Huron-Wendat peoples. We value the significant historical and contemporary contributions of local and regional First Nations and of all the original peoples of Turtle Island who have been living and working on the land from time immemorial. If you are able, please stand for our national anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command.
Car ton bras sait porter l'épée, il sait porter la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits.
God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
This time, I would just like us to take a moment of silence to reflect on those loved ones and members in our community that we lost this past week. I know that every week we lose people, but this week was especially hard in all areas of our municipality. So we'll just take a moment of silence, please. Okay, thank you. We will go to our clerk, Director Malanjukulo, for a closed meeting report that happened today, February 20th.
Mayor Bondi, through you, I can report on February 20th, 2024, council met at 4 p.m. and moved into closed session pursuant to section 239 2C and K of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended to discuss a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board and a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. And that's the extent of my report.
I just want to announce a milestone birthday that we had in our municipality as well. We have Helen Ellenberger, who turned 90. So congratulations, Helen. And to members of our audience, if you have a cell phone, can you please put it on silent? And if you need to take a call, just please step out in the room. Any declarations of conflicts of interest from members of council? Seeing none, I need a mover and a seconder to adopt the published agenda tonight. Councillor Mady, Councillor Guerin, any questions? We do have two notices of motion that we're adding, so we'll see those later. All in favor? And that is carried. Adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting for February 5th, 2024. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor Verbeek, any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. Public presentations, we have Rita Jabor, our Manager of Planning Services, on behalf of the Essex Municipal Heritage Committee. Rita.
Thank you. And through the mayor, good evening. It's Heritage Week, and this year we celebrate our town's rich agricultural roots and the people and organizations who preserve and promote our local history. Every year, the town of Essex seeks to recognize these exceptional persons and organizations through the Community Heritage Preservation Award. This year, we have 3 exceptional recipients, beginning with our first recipient, the Essex County Steam and Gas Engine Museum, which is located on the 11th concession in McGregor. Established in 1984, the museum has operated 3 simple goals: to operate a public museum of late 19th century or early 20th century gas and steam powered engines and antique tractors, to promote public interest in gas and steam powered engines and antique tractors, and to educate the public about gas and steam engine and antique tractors in Canada. Through their display of small engines, tractors, steam engines, and farming equipment, visitors can witness firsthand the evolution of our motorized history. The museum is also actively involved in the restoration of antique steam and gas engines, tractors, and machinery. They are now the largest steam engine museum in Ontario. This year, the museum has opened their doors for free tours in its first ever Family Day event and in recognition of Heritage Week. Yesterday's event drew approximately 80 people between the hours of 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. The dedicated volunteers stepped up and provided a memorable experience for all to enjoy. The events will continue on Wednesday, February 21st at 9:30 a.m. and 3 p.m. Here to accept the award is President Gary Strubar, Brenda Allen, who's their treasurer, and William Dunn, who's their secretary. Congratulations.
Thank you, Rita. So we'll have them come on up and then we'll just go to the hall, but just so members of the public can see them. How do you want to do the pictures? Do you want to do them one at a time?
Thank you. And through the mayor again. Our next recipient is the Canadian Transportation Museum in Heritage Village, which is located on Arner Town Line. In 1954, a group of friends and neighbors with a shared passion for old cars and socializing established the Historical Vehicle Society of Ontario in Windsor. The early days of the society were informal, with meetings dedicated to the discussion of cars, mechanical problems, and how to fix them. The society would attend events in the surrounding Windsor-Detroit area, which helped to create connections with local clubs across the border, such as the Detroit chapter. After a rapid increase in membership, finding an official clubhouse became a necessity, and talks of starting a museum for antique vehicles started to brew. In 1973, the society purchased a property on Arner Town Line in Essex. A generous donation from the Beneteau family made an expansion of the museum possible, and in 2001, a 50s-inspired diner and gift shop were added. Since its inception, the museum in Heritage Village has been dedicated to the preservation of historic artifacts and education of the greater Windsor-Essex area. The village is a step back in time, featuring the original historic buildings that tell the unique story of our people and our communities, including the Clark and Boudreau cabins, which were built in 1826 and 1835, respectively, the homestead of Jack Miner, which was built in 1889, and the Olinda General Store, built in 1840. The property also features the only EMS museum in Ontario and a Harley-Davidson museum. This year, the museum has opened their doors for free admissions all week in recognition of Heritage Week. Here to accept the award is curator Carolina Brozy, board chairmen Les McDonald, Marvin Baumgarten, and Bill Hissink are the vice chairs, and Donna Chilson, who is the events coordinator. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And through the mayor again. Our final recipient, certainly not least, is the late Mr. Fred Johnson. Fred passed away in 2018. He was a well-respected resident of Colchester South, a director at the Harrow Early Immigrant Research Society, a member of the Black Masons, and a hard-working and prosperous farmer. Mr. Johnson is being recognized tonight for having chronicled his family's harrowing story of escape from slavery in his book, The Story of Gabriel Timberlake, Escaped Slave. Gabriel Charlie Timberlake was Fred's grandfather. In 1847, Gabriel escaped with a group of 18 freedom seekers from 3 Kentucky plantations through the Underground Railroad in Ohio and Indiana to Case County, Michigan, in what would be known as the Kentucky Raids. Angered slaveholders pushed for more stringent slave laws because of the Kentucky Raids, resulting in the Fugitive Slave Act in 1850, which made it more dangerous to aid freedom seekers. In turn, this motivated the enactment of the Michigan Personal Liberty Act of 1855, which prevented the return of people to slavery. Leaving behind the terror and turmoil at Case County, Gabriel's group landed in Amherstburg, where they were warned to continue moving east to avoid slave catchers. It was at this moment that Gabriel decided to change his name to James Johnson as an extra precaution. The group of freedom seekers split up, and early the next morning, a weary James stood alone on the Colchester South roadside when he was approached by a Mr. Ferris who hired him as a farmhand. In 1853, James bought 25 acres of land from his friend, Jonathan Hugh Banks. Over 170 years, that acreage had steadily increased to a high of 70 acres. James was a man of faith. He sat on the committee to found a church on the corner of Walker Road in the 4th Concession. His descendant is Reverend Denise Johnson of the AME Church at Central Grove, which is located at the corner of Road in the 4th Concession. James was married to Elizabeth Chapman, and following her death, he married Mary Elizabeth Dennis, raising a total of 12 children. James was known as the first person in the area to grow burley tobacco. Although the tobacco grown at the Johnson farm was of the finest quality, unfair treatment of Black farmers from purchasers caused his crops to sell at diminished prices. A Mr. Clee noticed the price discrepancy. He was determined to help get fair pricing for the Johnson tobacco, so Mr. Clee grouped the Johnson tobacco harvest with his own, so buyers wouldn't know it was a Black man's tobacco. Fred Johnson continued to work the homestead farm. Fred is depicted on the cover of Milo Johnson's book, New Canaan, Freedom Land, and Dennis K. Smith's painting, Planting a Harvest, which features Fred praying in his field, and we're going to display that illustration on the screens for you. There's a picture of Mr. Fred Johnson on his farm, and we're going to show the illustration as well. There's an illustration of Mr. Fred Johnson on the cover of Milo Johnson's book. The Johnston homestead remains today on Dunn Road, just south of the 42nd parallel, with a couple acres of crops still being farmed. It carries on the legacy of the Johnson family who found a haven on the 42nd parallel. Here to accept this award are members of Fred's family, Jerry Johnson, as well as author Milo Johnson and heirs President Lori Stevenson. Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you, Rita. That was good news. It's great. And thank you to the Heritage Committee for their continued good work. I really look forward to those Heritage Awards. So looking for a mover and a seconder that the presentation on behalf of the Essex Municipal Heritage Committee be received and that council extends their congratulations to our recipients for the 2024 Community Preservation Award. Councillor Hammond, Councillor Guerin, any questions or comments, members of council? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. You don't have to stay. If you received an award and you want to go have dinner, you can. If not, you can hang out with us. There's no unfinished business tonight. Reports from administration, planning 2024-06. We have Essex Weld Solutions, billboard request, and holding H restriction removal, and we have an updated report. I've just given them a minute to. Okay. I think is Austin back in here? Okay. All right, we will go to our junior planner, Ian, who is visiting us tonight by Zoom. Want to run down the changes and the renderings, please?
Yep, sure thing. Thank you, Council. And through you, Mayor, at the direction of the previous council meeting, we received an application submitted by Essex Weld Solutions to construct a double-sided billboard on the land's 14978 14th Concession Road. And this item was ultimately deferred at the request of additional information and clarification. To give just a brief recap of what the applicant is proposing, they are looking to construct a double-sided billboard that requires council's approval through site-specific zoning bylaw, with one side facing westbound traffic along highway number 3, and it's going to be static in nature. And the second billboard is going to be facing eastbound traffic along highway number 3 and will be in electronic media format. Now, just to briefly touch on the points that council wanted some more clarification on. The first one was the setbacks from the center line of the road, as there was a bit of confusion with the measurements provided. So right now, our sign bylaw requires a setback of 41 meters from the center line of the road, from the billboard in which the sign face is facing. We have confirmed with the applicant that this billboard will be located 54 meters from the center line of the road. The next item, just to give some clarification, was the MTO permit, as it was believed to be expired at the time. We have since contacted the MTO and they have confirmed that it is still active at this time. The next point was council requested some renderings and a couple extra billboards to compare this one to. So my report contained a number of billboards, both identified by the planning and building department and by the applicant for council to review and compare sizes with. At the same time, the applicant also provided a rendering or a few renderings detailing the size of the proposed billboard, the size of the billboard along Lakeshore, along highway number 3, and of our current size and dimensions for a billboard within the town. Lastly, I also wanted to detail or clarify a couple items for the proposed bylaw. The first item is that we amended the dwell time to 60 seconds as per the discussion of council at the past meeting, whereas the applicant was requesting 20 seconds. The next item that I wanted to provide a little clarification on was that we amended the bylaw just to be a little more stricter in the light and lumen levels, so more accurately and clearly directed the applicant that they must follow our current restrictions as per the sign bylaw. And then the last item I wanted to touch on was that the bylaw will actually expire in 5 years only if the applicant is unable to acquire an MTO permit, as they would be required to renew this permit every 5 years. Should they not be able to require a new MTO permit, then it would be brought back to council for discussion for a new bylaw. However, if they get a new MTO permit, then that bylaw is still standing and is still approved. Thank you, council.
Any questions or comments to members of council or to our delegate? Austin is back here. We can ask him questions as well. Deputy Mayor Shepley?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So we received an updated locations to go and check, and one was on Provincial Road up by Great Floors. Would that be the same size? I'm just not sure if that was the exact same size as what we'd be looking at here.
Through you, Mayor. I just want to clarify, sorry, I just want to review my notes for a second. But it appears that it would be smaller, at least in, sorry. Unfortunately, I do not have that information on hand at the moment, if the applicant might have that, or if I could defer to another member of administration.
Mayor. So we did a comparison chart on page 6 of the report, which actually compares the requirements set forth in the sign bylaw with the proposed. But what we chose actually was the address of 1979 Provincial Road, which I believe is the actual billboard at the car wash, if I'm not mistaken. And so that gives you some indication as to the comparison of what's they look like they're quite similar, and potentially Mr. Friesen may be able to compare, or sorry, confirm.
Mayor Shepley?
Some follow up on that. I think I went and looked at the sign. You know what? It's what we were reviewing last meeting, and the size difference, and it seemed it was alarming initially until I went and viewed that sign, and I got to admit it's not a bad looking sign. I think it might work in the area. The other question I had for administration was it was brought to my attention that Home Hardware has an illuminated sign, electronic sign as well, and I'm curious, is the same requirements there for the duration time and that, or would those be the similar requirements imposed on that sign as opposed to his? Because I noticed it's about I realize it's a slower road, but it's about a 5-second, maybe 10-second, I'm not exact, turnover.
Director Chadwick?
Once again, Deputy Mayor. So the signage located at the current Home Hardware along Maidstone Ave is an electronic media sign and is not defined as a billboard. The electronic media sign regulations in our sign bylaw are applicable to that sign. In other words, that sign must essentially have the dwell time or duration time of of 180 seconds or more. If anyone is witness to a quicker transition time or quicker, dwell time, then we would be happy to investigate, contact by law enforcement, or submit a report of problem, and we'd be happy to investigate. But they are certainly bound by the same regulations of the sign bylaw. In the regard of Essex Weld, this applicant is seeking an exemption or a site-specific exemption of that requirement, but Home Hardware did not seek an exemption for that requirement.
Finally, I hate to be a flip-flopper, but I was for it, then I was against it, now I'm for it again. And I think, with the further information, it certainly helped change my opinion on it. I think the fact that it's facing the eastbound traffic, it won't interfere with our residents. It won't be a problem. In my opinion, I'll be supporting this tonight. Thank you.
Thanks to you, Mayor. Yeah, so the rendering is very helpful. Looking at the comparisons to our neighboring municipalities, sign face area for billboards is well within reason. I checked in with Pattison Outdoor. They're Canada's largest provider of billboard signage, and the perimeters that you're asking for, heights, width, is all within reason too. Matter of fact, they have many that are much bigger than that. I would be opposed to this type of signage if it was along another road, but when it comes to the highway that's servicing, Leamington right through to Windsor, I think it's probably most appropriate for a sign like that you want to do. And I think the setbacks, I'm fine with that. The dwell time, I mean, we're saying 60, you're asking for 20. Most of the ones I'm seeing out there are 20 seconds, so I'd even be okay with going up to 60. But and then the only other thing that I wanted to touch base is the third-party advertising. So on on all of our signage, we don't permit the third party advertising. The Home Hardware sign is a perfect example of them advertising their own business and their own products and such. But with this type of messaging board that you're looking to do, I mean, you can't get away from the third party. You have to have it. Love to have something in there where we would be looking to rent to maybe our Essex businesses as opposed to trying to attract shoppers along the highway to shop elsewhere rather than Essex, but not sure what we're permitted to do and what we can't do, but it's probably the only hang up I would have on a third party, but as far as the rest of it, I'd be supporting it. Thanks.
My main concerns are, of course, the safety. Spent a lot of time complaining about safety on that road. We finally get a widening that we've long awaited for. I'm more inclined to wait some time to collect data to make sure that it is safe before we start erecting billboards. And I think we need to reword the third person advertising a little better before we do that as well. My comments.
I have Counselor Allard, then Counselor Meady.
Through the mayor, I have two questions. Now, it faces the static one that transforms faces Windsor as you're driving down the road, correct? Westbound. Other way. Okay. Right. The one that transitions is traveling Windsor way.
Transitions is the one going towards Leamington, if I'm correct.
Another thing, on the agenda, it said in one section that the transition time between pictures, if it was 186 seconds through the for the picture be there, the transition time had to be 1 second. If it was less than that, it had to be longer. The transition time between pictures.
So the transition time that we're referring to with the 180 seconds, that's the actual transition time for like advertisement A switching to advertisement B. Advertisement A has to be on there for 180 seconds before you transition the ad. What I'm proposing is 20 seconds. The transition time where it actually like from ad to ad, I don't know what the specifics are on that.
Mayor Bondi, through you to Councillor Allard, the sign bylaw and also to Mr. Friesen as well, the sign bylaw requires that the transition time be no more than 1 second. In other words, we wrote it specifically into the site-specific bylaw to ensure that there's a quick transition, whether it's 60 seconds, 20 seconds, or 180 seconds. It is also mandated by the MTO permit to be as quick as possible, no more than 1 second. And we wrote that into the bylaw as well.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. In our report there, because I too have concerns about third-party advertising and you know, there's a paragraph here that says the sign advertisements. The proposed billboard will advertise local businesses and their products and services. Sign bylaw 2167, Schedule B, states that a billboard shall advertise a single business, organization, event, or activity located in the town of Essex or serving the local community. The proposed billboard complies with the advertising regulations of bylaw 2167. Is there anything in our bylaw for the electronic media that reads similar to this?
Thank you, Mayor Bondi, to Councillor Meady. So within the sign bylaw, we do have verbiage that allows us to control and have essentially the authority to order the removal of any signage that is deemed to be unsatisfactory, obtrusive in nature, or with, you know, even MTO's permit that does have strong language to prohibit messages of hatred or messages that are obtrusive in nature. It's not just deliberately geared towards billboards, but any signage within the town of we do have that authority to remove as required. And hope that helps to answer that question.
Madam Mayor, no, I understand regulating against hate speech or anything that's vulgar or offensive. I'm speaking more towards promoting Essex businesses.
Thank you once again through you to Councillor Mady. So the verbiage surrounding local business, so Town of Essex being the priority for advertising its businesses, local community means Essex County. So that was our intent, or our intent when we wrote the bylaw, was to promote businesses within either the local community or Essex County, serving the local community. So a business in Kingsville, for example, or a business in Leamington. Guys here.
Okay, I have Deputy Mayor Shepley, then Councillor Guerin.
Mayor, just a quick question on the motion that we're going to be considering. Is it the 20 seconds that the proponent asked or the 60 seconds that we had suggested? I just want to get the clarification on that, if we could.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So what we've proposed here and the recommendations set forth in Council's report is to adopt the bylaw for a 60-second dwell time. Should Council wish to approve the applicant's dwell time, and I would look to Director Malandrucolo to see if that could be amended tonight. But what we proposed in front of you was following Council's consultation a couple of weeks ago. We did propose 60 seconds.
Follow up to that. I'll be prepared to move that motion at 60 seconds with the intent that after we find that it's safe out there, if it's not causing any issues, that maybe, you know, when you come back to us again, we could relook at lowering that time. But I think safety should be at the foremost of our decision making here on that. And so at the appropriate time, I'll move that motion when it's ready.
Have Councillor Guerin, and then we'll get a motion on the table, and then we can all speak once to the motion. Councillor Guerin.
Thank you, through the Mayor. Back to my comment about the concern for the third party advertising. I just want to clarify what I meant by that. Was with the type of signage he's trying to do out there, you have to have third party. I mean, we have other billboard signs in Essex that permits the third party. You rent it, you put it on there. I guess where I was going is we could, if the business is in Essex and you want to put it up in Essex, as long as our business in Essex and people that want to advertise on it have the same opportunity as outside businesses to advertise on it, then it's fair, and I think that's fine. I'm not saying that that board should have only Essex businesses on it, but the nature of it is going to be first come, first serve more than likely, but hopefully some consideration be given to our town businesses.
I believe Essex Wealth Solutions to be good corporate and community citizens, and I think they'll hear our feedback and keep that in mind. I also think about billboards in other areas of Essex County promoting Essex businesses. So we are a county, and we do want to, we want to encourage residents to go different places in the county too. Come here, but we hope that other billboards in other towns ask them to come here too. So we have to work together, I think, there. So I'm going to look for a motion that Essex Wealth Solutions billboard request the updated report be received, and that bylaw 2297 being a bylaw to permit the erection of one static billboard sign facing westbound traffic and one digital media billboard sign facing eastbound traffic located at 14978 14th Concession Road, south of Kings Highway number 3 be read a first, second, third time, finally passed on February 20th, 2024, and that bylaw 2298 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 1037 to be read a first, second, third time, and finally passed on February 20th, needing a mover and a seconder for that. And I believe Deputy Mayor Shepley wanted to move it, and Councillor McGuire Blaze is seconding it. Members of council are permitted to speak to it one more time if necessary. Seeing none, all in favor? That is 4, and opposed? Hang on, did I not count right? Okay, I didn't count myself. 5, 3. Okay, all in favor. 5, and opposed? 3. Did the opposed want it recorded at all? No, it's recorded on YouTube. Okay, we will move forward. Congratulations, Austin. Community Services 2024-03, Parks Plan, Parkland Dedication and Payment in lieu of Parkland Analysis. We will go to our Director, Morissette, and we have Watson and Associates who will also be present to take us through this.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. The Town of Essex Community Services Department has undertaken a parkland dedication study. So for the past year and a half, we've been undergoing this study, which has had a lot of different components to it. So I'm going to pass it off to Watson and Associates, Daryl, who's going to take you through and give you a little bit of a presentation on what's involved in this process.
Thank you very much, Jake. Thank you very much to the mayor and to council. Would you like me to share my screen and share the presentation? Confirm.
Yes, please. And welcome.
Thank you. I think I just need screen sharing enabled and then.
Thank you for your patience, everyone, as we continue to find the right spot. If you can see your slideshow on your side, you can just start and we'll catch up.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you very much. So as Jake mentioned, I'm here today to discuss the updates to the parkland dedication policies and the payment in lieu of parkland dedication policies. And so I'll just go through a brief presentation on the some of the work we've been doing. I'll touch on a little bit of the legislative overview, which provides the Planning Act, which provides you the authority to impose parkland dedication requirements. Talk about some of the impacts from Bill 23, which provides some limitations on what you can include or what you can recover through parkland dedication. I'll talk a little bit about your current policies and practice, and then provide some summary analysis, some summary observations, along with our kind of preliminary recommendations, and then talk about next steps. So we could go to the next page, please. And so with respect to parkland dedication, the purpose of this is to really ensure that you can grow your park systems along with your community. So I mentioned the Planning Act provides you the authority to require a dedication of parkland, and I'll get into a little bit more specifically on what those rules are. Why are we looking at this now? I think there's a few reasons that the municipalities in the county are looking at this. First off, when you're undertaking your parks and recreation master plans, typically you're looking at identifying a targeted service level. So for example, maybe it's 6 acres of parkland for every 1,000 people. And so when you're taking a look at that, if you apply that service level to some future population, maybe it's your expected population 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and we take a look at your current inventory, through the policies you're allowed to impose under the parkland dedication bylaw or policies that you have, will you be able to achieve that service level at the end of that forecast period? If not, that comes with a financial impact, which could put a higher burden on taxpayers to try to achieve that higher standard. In addition, with all the discounts from Bill 23 on other revenue tools, such as development charges, those changes, those reductions put a higher pressure on the taxpayer. And so maximizing recovery of parkland dedication minimizes the impact on the taxpayer. As well, if we're going to impose trying to maximize recovery of parkland dedication, you need a parkland dedication bylaw to impose impose those conditions. Next page, please. And so the memorandum that as part of the agenda was completed back in March of 2023. And in that memo, we do have a draft parkland dedication bylaw, which will be brought back to council for consideration at a later date. As well, just to note, we're actually currently working with Leamington, Tecumseh, Lakeshore, LaSalle, and Kingsville to all update their parkland dedication policies at the same time. Okay, so most of the county is looking at this at the same time. Amherstburg did pass the parkland dedication bylaw early in 2023 before we were undertaking the reviews for the other municipalities. Next page, please. And so there's really two sections of the Planning Act that provide you the authority to impose parkland dedication requirements. Well, I guess realistically there's three, but section 51.1 speaks to subdivisions. Section 53 speaks to consents, very similar rules, so I'll just stick to the two sections. And so under section 51.1 for subdivisions as they come through, there's no parkland dedication bylaw required. You can impose parkland dedication as a condition of approval of the agreement. And what you can impose and what you can require is 5% of the land for residential or institutional development and 2% of the land for commercial or industrial developments. Now you can actually either take the land through parkland dedication, or you can take the cash equivalent of that land through payment in lieu of parkland dedication. For residential development, there's also the ability to impose this alternative rate. Rather than 5% of the land, you can impose this rate based on 1 hectare of land for every 600 residential units. If you take the cash, it's a little bit discounted. You get 1 hectare of land, or the value of that 1 hectare of land for every 1,000 units. Now, the key distinction here is that when we're talking about payment in lieu of the dedication, so the value of the land, we take the value of the land the day before the approval of the draft plan of subdivision. So early on in the process, before the property is serviced. If we go to section 42 of the Planning Act, this applies to all development or redevelopment in the town. You do need a bylaw to impose these requirements, but it's the same requirements. So the 5%, the 2%, or this alternative rate. The key distinction here is that when we're identifying the value of the land, it's valued the day before the building permit. So serviced land, ready to build lots, has a much higher value of land than earlier on in the process before the land is serviced. Okay, so that's the key distinction between those two sections. Next page, please. And so with Bill 23, there were some reductions to the Development Charges Act as well as the Planning Act on what you can collect from development charges as well as parkland dedication. And so a number of these changes are really to align the exemptions or discounts that were provided under the development charge legislation with the parkland legislation. And so the first one identifies this rate freeze. And so if I proceed with a site plan application or zoning bylaw amendment application, my parkland fees are frozen at the time I submit my complete application, very similar to development charges. There's exemptions for the additional residential units, so you can add up to 2 units in a single, semi, or townhouse, and you don't have to pay a development charges. Similarly, those are netted from the parkland dedication requirements. The exemptions for affordable, attainable, inclusionary zoning units, as well as nonprofit housing units, again, apply to development charges as well as parkland dedication. There's a requirement now to allocate the monies in the reserve fund at the beginning of the year. So there's 60% of a balance at the beginning of the year. You need to allocate that to specific projects. Now, one of the bigger changes, and this more so affects municipalities with higher density apartment building developments, is a reduction of that alternative rate I talked about. And so previously you could recover 1 hectare of land for every 300 dwelling units. They cut that in half to 1 hectare of land for every 600 residential units. Similarly, with the cash value of the land, it was 1 hectare, the value of 1 hectare of land for every 500 dwelling units, now it's 1,000. So on top of cutting in half, they also put a cap on that, where it's no more than 10% of the land for if it's 5 hectares or less, and 15% for land greater than 5 hectares. Now, again, that really only impacts municipalities with higher density development, so may not affect the town as much in the current few years, but potentially in the future, it might have a greater impact. A parks plan is now required to pass parkland dedication bylaw, and so the parks plan memorandum that's attached to this agenda would meet that requirement. Lastly, there is the potential for encumbered lands to be provided as part of the dedication. However, that section's not yet in force. So potentially in the future, if that section comes in force, developers may come forward with encumbered lands, which might have a woodlot or some drainage issues where you can't actually build a park on it, but it could be counted as part of their 5% or 2% dedication. So again, just restricting the potential recoveries for the town to provide that service level that they're trying to achieve. Next page, please. And so the current policies in your official plan identify that for residential development, you would require 5% of the land to be dedicated. And for non-residential development or the industrial and commercial, there was 2% of the land to be dedicated. If you're going to take the cash instead of the land, there's this historical approach of utilizing a fee per lot. And then a number of the municipalities in the county have done this as well, is if rather than imposing that 5% of the value of the land, just taking a fee per lot, and that fee is $1,250. Alternatively, you do have the ability to utilize that 5% of the land or 2% for commercial or industrial developments. Next page, please. And so one of the things we wanted to look at as part of this review of all of the municipalities in the county is that per lot fee that was being utilized. And so if we're allowed to impose a fee of 5% of the value of the land, and we look at that per lot fee of $1,250, that's equivalent to saying that the lot is worth $25,000. And so one of the things we've done is we've undertaken a review of vacant lands for sale in the town as well as the surrounding municipalities. And looking at the value of the service lots the day before building permit, they're actually worth about $100,000. And so if you're using the full ability of the Planning Act to impose 5% of land, you could be charging $5,000 as that per lot fee. Now, looking at the municipalities in the surrounding yourselves in the county, most of the municipalities, the value of the lots were actually about $200,000. So that 5% would be about $10,000 per lot. And next page, please. And so as part of the memorandum, what we've done is we've taken a look at your current inventory and what that service level identified in the official plan is at the end of 2031 to see if we would be able to achieve that service level. Now, what we noticed and what we've identified is actually the town has a current inventory of about 208 acres of parkland. But if we apply the official plan standard of 6.2 acres per thousand or 2.5 hectares, we actually only would need about 137 acres. So we have more inventory than we would need at the end of our 2031 forecast. I understand that in 2023, the draft recommendations from the master plan identified a higher service level of 3.5 hectares. That would still we would still be have more inventory than we would need at 2031. But we're suggesting that on a go-forward basis that the town look at this analysis to forecast out your needs to 2051 or longer to ensure that the inventory you have would be able to meet that service level in the future. And so when we took a look at how much parkland dedication you could receive through the various scenarios, so the slide on the bottom, if we're looking at your current approach of 5% for residential and 2% for commercial industrial, you would be able to receive about 3.05 acres. If you also impose that 5% requirement on institutional development, that could increase slightly to about 3.47 acres received over the forecast period. And then we also looked at, instead of that residential 5% using that alternative rate, you'll see you actually would recover less, again, because the density assumed for the forecasted residential development is lower, so you're better off using that 5%. Next page, please. So we did a similar analysis for the payment in lieu of parkland. So rather than taking the land, taking the cash, if we use that per lot fee only for everything, you could see we would only be able to recover about $540,000. But if you were using the 5% and the 2% values, you could receive up to about $2.6 million in payment in lieu. Now, I will note that although the inventory we have is more than we've identified as needed for 2031, payment in lieu of parkland, the cash value, it's actually used for more than just purchasing parkland. It's also used for the rehab and repair of the existing parks facilities and parks equipment, et cetera. So again, if we're looking to maximize recovery of parkland and minimize the impact on the taxpayer, still trying to maximize recovery from parkland dedication and payment in lieu is going to help in that respect. And so just a couple of observations. We have if you're going to maximize the recovery, that's going to minimize the impact on future taxpayers. Looking at that per lot fee, it's far less than 5% of land values that we see today. So it's a consideration potentially to review that and potentially look at increasing that. And then if we're going to maximize recovery using the 5% and 2% rates that you have identified in your official plan, use that per lot fee for consents only. So if someone's going to build one house, we don't need to require them to get an appraisal. We can use that per lot fee that should be close to what 5% of the value of the land is. Potentially in the future, you might want to update the official plan to allow you to impose that alternative rate. Again, if you're starting to forecast out into the future, seeing higher density developments, that would be the time to update your official plan and start using that alternative rate. And then lastly, utilizing that parkland dedication bylaw to impose the charge and the value of the land the day before building permit. And next page, please. And so before passing a parkland dedication bylaw, we have to prepare the parks plan and make it available to the public, which we've done. And as well, it notes that you shall consult with the local school boards and may consult with whoever else you deem appropriate. And so what we've discussed in the county for the number of the municipalities is to a joint engagement session with the local school boards mainly so they're not listening to the same presentation 6 or 7 times. And then as well, incorporate the development community into that presentation so we can present all of the proposed changes for all the municipalities in the county. We're anticipating to have this, I believe it's early April is the date we're looking at now. And then subsequent to that engagement session, we'd bring back feedback from that to council with a parkland dedication bylaw for your consideration. And with that, that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. A couple questions off the top. The Amherstburg has adopted this already. You said, would these fees be in line with what they have? And is their parkland volume the same as ours at the current time? Just so we can get an idea what we're looking at is to one of our only neighbors that has it at this time.
Yeah, so through the mayor, I'm not quite familiar with the exact fee per lot that they impose, but they do require 5% of the value of the land for subdivisions and most development. So these recommendations would be in line with what Amherstburg imposes. With respect to the amount of parkland that they're looking at, I could follow up, review what Amherstburg has put out there in the public, and then provide feedback through staff to council.
That comparable would be really helpful to us, as they're the only ones with it at this point in time. And the mayor and I did have a meeting with local developers not too long ago. And I reached out to one only that I was able to get a chance to get their feedback from. And I like that we're not passing anything tonight, and that we're going to have that opportunity to get that feedback from the developers as well. So I appreciate it. Great report, and it's a lot to take in. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Comments from members of council? I do think it is also a lot to take in. I would like our development community. We're working really hard to build bridges with our development community, and I'm all for green space. I love having green space. You can never have enough. But I go and I want to make sure we have balance, because I've gone and I look at our monthly development reports, and we're down like 200% for developing. We also want to make sure that what we're developing is affordable. So, you know, for this, I don't want to rush and be one of the first municipalities that passes it. I'd rather sit back. Let's see what the other municipalities are doing, because if we pass something and it doesn't work for the development community as well, we're going to hear about it. I'd kind of like to sit back, see what other towns are doing, and come in right in line so that we're all kind of on the same page. And not having the Amherstburg numbers is kind of, you know, I want those too. And when I look at what we do with these prices per acre, you know, the industrial park on Roseboro, that's vacant. It's been vacant. I'd be interested to see how long these vacant properties at this price have been vacant, because they're vacant because people can't afford to build on them. And most of our subdivisions right now are stagnant. So this is almost just like another you know, nail in the coffin for local developers right now. So I'm also glad that we're not passing it tonight. We need to take time with this feedback, and we need to do it right, and making sure that we're not too aggressive in finding that parkland. Questions from council? Okay, I need a mover and a seconder that the parkland dedication and payment in lieu analysis, and that the community services report be received, and that council authorize administration to undertake a public engagement to review and draft parkland dedication bylaw and to implement the changes made by Bill 23. Needing a mover and a seconder. Councillor McGuire Blaze, supported by Deputy Mayor Shepley. Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you so much for coming this evening.
Thank you.
Finance and Business Services, 2024-01, tax adjustments, section 357-1 and section 358 and section 359. Needing a mover and a seconder that Finance and Business Services report be received, and that council approve the cancellation, reduction, refund, or increase of taxes in accordance with the provisions of the Municipal Act 2001. This is pretty straightforward, but we have our director here in case you have any questions. Needing a mover and a seconder. Councillor Hammond, Councillor Mady, any questions? Seeing none, all in favor, and that is carried. Economic Development 2024-02, Rural Economic Development Program. We have Mr. Silvera here, and he can walk us through, and then we will make a motion.
Absolutely. Thank you, through you, Your Worship. The town of Essex is looking to submit a grant application through the Rural Economic Program, an intake that opened in late January, and going through council strategic plans and the town of Essex Business Retention Expansion Plan, we've identified a package that we think is aligned with the province of Ontario's strategic priorities for this grant. So to give council an overview of the Ontario Rural Economic Development Grant, it provides 50% funding to municipalities, nonprofits that are implementing projects that have direct benefit to rural communities in Ontario. We've received funding in the past through this grant for marketing, website updates, streetscape projects, and agritourism initiatives. We are looking to submit an application to this program, but we wanted to brief council on a few things, as there is a request to move funding from reserves in order to come up with the matching funds required by the province. So as part of two plans completed in 2023, the Business Retention Expansion Plan and Council Strategic Action Plan, we've developed a package and work plan that we believe not only aligns with Council Strategic Plan, but also aligns with the Rural Economic Development Program. As part of that application, we're looking to hire an additional support role in one-year contract position to assist with project implementation. Also looking at hiring a consultant to explore the feasibility of developing a community improvement plan, and purchasing software which allows the municipality to easily identify funding opportunities for future capital projects and connect businesses in the town of Essex with funding opportunities. Administration is experienced in delivering similar projects. In 2022 to 2023, we had additional support staff on a contract role to do the My Main Street program. And we were able to make 100 business touch points throughout the municipality and distribute over $100,000 in funding to 10 businesses in Essex. Additional benefits for this specific grant. The additional economic development staff member on a one-year contract will enhance our ability to support local business priorities and council strategic priorities in a much more timely and effective manner. In addition, directly implementing our business supports, the position would assist in identifying grants that we can apply for as a municipality, which takes off that financial burden on capital projects that we'd like to fund. The project also seeks to retain a consultant to explore the feasibility of a CIP, which has the potential to bolster the municipality's efforts towards job creation and economic growth. And the CIP could serve as a strategic roadmap for sustainable development, guiding and incentivizing new investments that stimulate growth and attract new businesses. Implementing the corporate-wide grant tracking software streamlines the process of identifying and applying for and managing for grant funding opportunities. So by having that centralized grant-related information and having administrative tasks that are automated within the system, it increases our efficiency and effectiveness in securing funding for corporate-wide capital projects. And successful grant applications not only generate new revenue for us, but assists in our financial capacity, which I mentioned earlier. So our ask is for a transfer of $35,000 for economic development reserves to support our application program. Of course, the grant application to RED is not yet approved, but in order for us to take the next step, we're seeking council's support within our application. Thank you.
Vera, good work as always. So I need any questions, comments from council? Katie, Councilor McGuire Blaze, sorry.
That's okay. Katie is my name. Just where would the focus be for this new employee? Where would they be focusing their efforts? Would it be in the entire municipality? Would you be focusing it in for the wineries in the south, or would it be for your centers, Harrow Center, Essex Center?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's a really good question. So previously in the My Main Street program, which we did about 1.5 years ago, that was strategic to the downtown core. This would be a lot more broad. So it would be focused on tourism businesses, industrial businesses, any business that's looking to expand that needs information about funding opportunities or needs a direct point of contact for the municipality on an expansion project or anything like that. It would be additional support for us for a year to help identify funding opportunities for them and funding opportunities for us.
Thank you through the chair. And so by funding opportunities, do you mean they would be able to research different grants? They would be able to reach out to third parties and find out if there is opportunity for collaboration? Is that what, like, can you define funding opportunities?
Yeah, so through you, Madam Mayor, it would mainly be upper level of government funding opportunities, so grant applications or grant funding. So an application like this, for example, that comes out maybe twice a year for the Rural Economic Development Program, or past grants that we've applied for corporately. This software allows us to identify them in live time. Sometimes there's opportunities out there that we don't even know of. There's over $1 billion in grant funding throughout the country right now. I think that having the ability to see the amount of funding that's out there in a streamlined software and having a dedicated person to write those grants corporately and assist businesses, like this position wouldn't be writing grants for businesses, but helping them identify what grants are out there for their expansion opportunities could be very beneficial.
That's really helpful, actually, and I love the idea. With the new software, just because I'm curious, would we be able, does it allow us to see grants that aren't particular to businesses? Like, could we see grants for parks and recreation, for sewer systems, water treatment? Is this available through this system?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to give you a little bit more perspective on this software, it's been used by the City of Windsor, Kawartha Lakes County, Simcoe. Other municipalities have used this software to identify capital project grant opportunities through the feds, through the province, mainly used for municipal funding opportunities, accessing those, but also has information on business grants as well. Companies like Steam Whistle out of Toronto have used Grant Match. This is the program. So we're looking to bring that software online and give us a lot more capacity to identify those opportunities and apply for them available.
Councilor Hammond.
Yeah, this initial investment, is it a 1-year investment or a long-term investment? You said that the hire was going to be on contract for a year, I believe. The software, I presume, is going to last us until the next update or whatever. So like the length of this money, and basically my big concern is what's the potential return on our dollar?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So I want to clarify one thing. The ask today is for council to support this application. We're not yet approved through the province, so the province still has to review the application and potentially approve the funds. So if they don't approve those funds, then we potentially don't have a project here. It's part of our application is to provide matching funding, and we need that resolution from council tonight in order to support our application. In terms of the return on investment, I mean, having the ability of that software to identify those opportunities, some that we, that are out there right now that we potentially can apply for or weren't aware of, it streamlines the process for us. So there's, like I said, there's billions of dollars of funding out there that we're eligible to apply for stormwater projects, infrastructure projects, you name it. And having the additional staff capacity to apply for those grants could be very helpful for us.
If we don't get the funding, is this something you would recommend us to find funding for if we don't get this grant?
So if we don't get this grant, we would be coming back to council with kind of next steps in terms of what we can do within our own financial capacity. There's not a grant that I'm aware of right now, although I don't have grant match to identify, that would fund a project like this. But we can come back to council it takes the province about 4 months to review grant applications. So we can come back to council with a report at that time if we receive funding or if we don't.
And then I have Councilor Mady.
Mayor, through you, Counselor Hammond started to ask it on, I think you got it into another area, just the 1 year contract staff member. Do you propose that that would be something that would be continued on after the fact, or that's going to be done in 1 year, not something that would be on? What I'm asking.
Through you, Madam Mayor, thank you for clarifying, and I apologize for not answering that question. It would be a 1 year contract opportunity funded 50% through the town of Essex and 50% through the province. We don't have funding to fund that position more than that. So it was 1 year. Grant match in this application as it currently stands is funded through 2024 and 2025 with potential for renewal in 2026. Would be a pilot project for us to kind of assess it, see how we like it, look at the return on investment, if it's worth it or not. It's about a $12,000 annual subscription. So it's a chunk of change, right? We need to see that we're getting a return on investment on it. And then the CIP project could be done in potentially 9 to 12 months with start in potential late summer or fall. Does that answer your question?
Very much. I'll be supporting it. Thank you.
For you, Madam Mayor. I like it. I like the fact that we're going after grant money to help fund it, and that we're going to be able to go after a lot more grant money that does seem to sit on that table for a long time, often not taken by somebody. So it'll be great to get that. And as far as the rural economic development, name, I'm not opposed to our rural businesses getting some help. We spent a lot of time with CIP programs and our main streets and helping our urban centers. I'd really like to see the staff member come up with some ideas on helping our rural businesses, recover a little bit too.
I believe we still have a CIP on County Road 50, so we can keep spreading that word too. I love it. I think it's great. Increased jobs and increased assessment potentially if our businesses expand. So I think it's good. I do have one question. So this position, are you able to bring back a report, even a biannual, and then at the end of the grants that they were successful in getting for the business community and for us? And can you teach me how to search that grant match software? So I'll learn. So yes, that's my question. Can we get an update on how much money they bring in?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, and that's the wonderful thing about this platform is that it tracks the success of your application in terms of dollars that you're going after and dollars that you're successful in getting. So we plan on identifying key performance indicators for council to look at, what we're applying for and potentially what we're bringing in with that software. The province wants that too, if we're successful. I think that's the other thing I want to make clear here is I know it's an exciting project. I'm excited about it. The province still has not funded it, right? The application due date is tomorrow. We plan on submitting the application if council approves this tonight. But at the end of the day, it's the decision of the Minister of Food, Agricultural and Rural Affairs. So as politicians, I would encourage you to potentially lobby them and let them know about our application.
And then I'll look for a motion.
Yeah, thanks to the mayor. Yeah, it's a good report, and hopefully it's something that comes to fruition and we get it. So I'll make the motion that that we support 2024 post-budget approval for the multiple initiatives, and that be funded as per the agenda.
By Councillor Guerin, that council support the 2024 post-budget approval for multiple initiatives, including a 1-year contract position, retaining a consultant to explore a CIP strategy, and purchase of grant match software to be funded with the Economic Development Reserve and from grant monies pending approval of the application, supported by Councillor Verbeek. And then if we want to speak to the motion, we get one comment. Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Mayor, I'm just wondering if we could possibly send that off to our local MPP, Anthony Liardi, with the motion passes. Thank you.
Sounds good. All in favor? And that is carried. Community Services 2024-01, Harrow High School property recommendations. We will go to Director Morissette, and then we will seek a motion.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. As council is aware, administration has been working the past couple of years on assessments of the Harrow High School facility to determine costing models for different anticipated uses. Within the first couple months of this new council, administration went over the condition of the facility as an update. In addition, last summer, council took a walkthrough of the facility to see the overall condition. Since that time, administration has been working with the engineering team to determine if there is a fiscally responsible option to be able to save the school in part or as a whole. Without the consideration of changing the facility from a school to a different use, the cost to restore the facility as a whole is $8.6 million. If we were to change the use from an educational institution to a recreational facility, we would be looking at an additional $1.4 million, as there are updated building codes and retrofitting that must be done to comply with the building codes. This would mean that the costing would exceed $10 million. It is also important to remember that this cost estimation has some risk value and contingency built in with the cost. However, it was based on visual inspections. So if there were serious issues behind what is actually visible to the engineering team, the cost could quickly magnify as they go through the process. Two additional options that were considered. The reason that these other options were considered was because the structural feasibility as well as the access and integration to different mechanical systems throughout the building. So the second option that was looked at was to demolish the cafeteria and repair the rest of the facility. The cafeteria and the cafeteria is the worst area of the facility. It's in very poor shape. So to remove this section of the building would be and restore the rest of the building would be $6.7 million. Add the $1.4 million for change of use, totaling $8.1 million. The third option was to demolish the cafeteria and areas up to the gymnasium and restore the rest of the remaining area. To do this would cost approximately $6.3 million. Again, take into consideration, you have to add approximately $1.4 million to change the use, which would total approximately $7.7 million. It's also important to remember that we cannot restore one area of the high school and use it while the rest of the facility is untouched due to mold growth. We wouldn't want the public in areas of the facility where there is mold growth on the other side of the wall. In consultation with our engineering team for public safety, it really would be an all or nothing approach. The Community Services Master Plan did identify the need for gym space in the southern end of the municipality. So if this is something that council wants to work towards, it's the recommendation of administration to build the facilities that we would need rather than just making the existing facility work. The master plan recommendation was also to look at multi-use facilities rather than standalone facilities due to costing and operational savings that we could have by having the multi-use facilities. By doing this, we can receive what we need and where it is best located as well. So if we were to build a 14,000 square foot addition onto the existing arena, it could have a gym, meeting rooms, washrooms, potentially relocate the Harrow Library there, and that would be an approximate cost of $7.8 million. The town is also aware that there's a need for housing, specifically affordable housing. This has been voiced by a lot of residents as well as it's a provincial initiative. For this reason, administration is recommending that the Harrow High School area is put out for a request for proposal for development purposes. The funding received from the land sale can be put towards an extension at the Harrow High School facility as a more long-term plan. In addition, as part of this project, administration is recommending we undertake a park-specific master plan to have a vision on what we can do with the property around the arena and that park area. As a final thing to remember, the town of Essex purchased this property from the school board with the need for the land. The high school came with it. Unfortunately, the high school has been sitting vacant for nearly 8 years with minimal attention to facility maintenance. While we understand there is strong sentiment for keeping the high school, administration believes it is in the best interest of the taxpayers to sell the land, given the burden of costs for the renovations. And that's essentially the recommendations as per the report. So if there's any further questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Director Morissette, if we could put up the picture of what we're looking to sell for members of the public that are watching, I think that would be beneficial so that people don't think we're selling everything. We're talking specifically about the Harrow High School building footprint. And while you're doing that, Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Madam Mayor, this will help with my question I'm going to ask as well. Through your presentation, you mentioned the cafeteria being the worst. After our tour, I couldn't differentiate between the worst and the best of that building. It's in pretty bad shape. And sentiment aside, I think we're doing the right thing here. My question would be, once we have that picture of the footprint, on our property there that we do own. Within the RFP, are we allowing our proponents to take a look at that footprint? And are we looking at that footprint and viewing the whole area to see if maybe we adjust the footprint to that same land footprint to another area that would maybe be better used for a development? Or are we just limiting them to that particular footprint only? And is that something we should maybe entertain, is looking at our property as a whole to say, hey, this footprint works maybe better over here if we develop it over here? But do you understand what my question is? Thank you.
Mayor Bonnie, the administrative team has taken this into consideration. We all looked at the maps and what we thought was the best option. We really don't want to give up the green space that we purchased with the facility. And for that reason, using the existing footprint is what we feel is the best option to preserve the rest of the green space and find out. We've got a lot of things that people want to do in the master plan. We've had things like pickleball courts and other amenities that we could put potentially on that property, which is the reason why we'd want to have that master plan study to see what amenities we could put there. But as an administrative team, we feel that still having the access, like we do have agreements with the Harrow Fair Board, for instance, which gives the right of access up to the teardrop that you can see there. So we would need to make sure that we do have within that yellow rectangular area, we do want to make sure that there's shared access to get to the rear of the property as well for the daycare purposes, as they would be using that facility. So we've looked at a lot of different aspects, and administration, we do feel like this would be the best proposal.
The other question I did have was the piece, I think that's at Wellington Street there. The piece that lands on Wellington Street, have we considered removing that piece and selling that off separately, as it might be a better value for the town for the bucks on that particular portion? Just something to think about, and appreciate your answers. Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Bonnie. So we did look at some of those options. The thing that we also had to take into consideration is access, right? So we don't necessarily, based on the proposals, depending on what they're doing, they may not be utilizing the access from McAfee. That might be their only access, depending on what the proposal is. We still have to work on what the proposal is, and we have to talk specifically as an administrative team what things we're looking for. We want to get input from council and the public as well to see what everybody's looking for. It's not just this is the approach we're going with. We have to build the approach, and we're going to be coming back to council to discuss and get further direction if they're okay with what we're presenting, taking all those things into consideration.
Thanks, through the mayor. To Director Morissette, on the drawing, this bottom part of where the red line's going across, I'm just wondering why we're giving up so much of the space off of the building. I think that's the shop area back there, I believe, but I'm not sure what that measurement would be. But do we have to give up that much of that on that side of the actual building? So I'm talking the lower part of that diagram between the building and the red line, running along the pathway that you'd access the baseball diamond. I'm not sure what that measures from the building to the red line and then all the way across, but I'm wondering, do we have to give that much of it, or can we bring that red line back right up to the building wall?
Through you, Mayor Bonnie. So the reason why we chose that specific line was because it lines up with the existing roadway, which we'd want to have access to be able to get shed that's on the west side of the baseball diamond. So theoretically, yes, we could adjust that. It would be taking away more land that we may not necessarily be able to utilize because the roadway is right there anyways. So it was in our opinion that having that as the cutoff spot easily delineates where they would be able to utilize, as well taking into consideration what we're able to use the property for.
I like the footprint that you've carved out. I can live with that. I think it makes sense. I think we need to move forward, and had we been talking about taking up any of the other green space, we probably would have had a full chamber where we couldn't accommodate anybody, because that green space there is really, really valuable. Councillor McGuire, please.
Thank you, through the chair. So I'm just going to, our youth council member, Colin Pine, he had to leave early, but he did leave some notes for the Harrow High School. This is Colin. I'm in support of the new development options to find use of the Harrow High School. He asks, is it feasible with the amount of mold issues for someone to use the actual high school, or will they be more than likely demolishing the high school and rebuilding? Do we have an idea of what they might be doing with the property?
You, Mayor Bondi. So the intent would be for development purposes. We've heard loud and clear from the community that there's housing shortages, specifically affordable housing shortages. So we'd be anticipated that we would be targeting the affordable housing.
And just to follow up, he says, will the town of Essex have to put money into the building before developers would be interested in it?
Through you, Mayor Bondi. So it's tough to say at this point because we would have to have specifics in the request for proposal if we would be willing to do that, which I would personally, and I think as an administrative team we've discussed, we wouldn't want to put the investment out there. That's why we have this kind of footprint saying, here's your workable area. What do you want to do with this area? Show us what the plans and the renderings are, and it's yours. So they would be responsible for that. Although the RFP is not specifically designed at this point. So I can't say with 100% certainty that's the case, but that's the way I think we would be leaning.
There's just a little thing here. The purchase of Harrow High School was rushed and not thought through. It is a perfect example of feelings and attachment to a building, how feelings and attachment to a building can interfere with proactive and fiscally responsible business choices. It was a misuse of taxpayer money that has taken away from the areas of need. Did the town attempt to ask the school board about buying just the green space when it was purchased in 2021?
Colin turns in later. So the school closed in 2016. And at that time, if we would have purchased the building, we could have done something like Holy Names here in Essex. But unfortunately, council just at that time wanted to buy just the property. And the school board was unwilling to sever. They have a policy where they don't sever green space from buildings because the value is in the actual green space and not the building. And so they did not want to sever. That's why we went back and forth. And then they lost, they had transition with school board staff. And we went through a few different staff here. So the file kind of always dropped, and then there's an election. So nobody's right, nobody's wrong on what happened. But I think it was actually a really smart move buying the high school in the green space because we had to buy it all. And now we get to control what goes there, which I think is really important because had we let private development buy the school and the green space, that whole place could have been developed and we wouldn't have any say in what goes there. And people that, condos that are going up for $3,500 a month could have gone there. So now we actually have control over what goes there in the most important recreational core in Harrow. So Colin, give me a call. I'll fill you in. And Councillor McGuire-Blaze.
Thank you through the chair. Speaking on behalf of myself now, are we going to write what affordable housing is, or are we going to wait for the province to give us the definition?
I will defer to Director Chadwick, but in the RFP, and we've used the municipality of Leamington kind of as a template that we would look at build on, so we would address it. But recently the province has come out with the definition for affordable housing, and I'll defer to Director Chadwick.
Say a sweet through to Councillor McGuire-Blaze. So we're at this pivotal point with Bill 23. Another bill has been introduced called Bill 134. And what that will do is essentially set something called the rental housing unit definition. To give some example, it's a percentage, so average annual household income for renter households in the 60th percentile, and it's a division of that. So on average, or one example could be, let's say the average market rent is $1,400. 80% of that market rent is $1,100 or so. Then essentially the rental threshold would be $278 per month for an affordable housing unit. So this is just an example. The definition right now, the actual bulletin has not been put out just yet, but that is consultation has just recently been completed on the definition. And we will be able to set the specifications in our RFP for the number of affordable housing units by definition through the province. And if suitable, we could also consider market units. It's really up to council as to, you know, what that looks like.
Through the chair. I just want to clarify. You did not just say that we could, affordable housing would be $270 something. It's 270 less of what the current market is. Or would affordable housing be $270 something a month?
To clarify, it was an example, and the example is to indicate less than the threshold. So that is the threshold. The rental threshold is less than.
Clarification. Sorry, I just have a follow-up. Not to Director Chadwick. The Harrow High School was purchased for $865,000 and a little bit more than that. And this is proposing that we use the funds from the sale of this to go towards another building in Harrow, which I'm not opposed to, but I do think that we should repay back the amount of money we took from our landfill reserves from the sale of this land, repay back the money from the landfill reserves, whatever extra there is, definitely use for recreation facility in Harrow or green space. Was that considered at all? And is that something that we can do?
Mayor Bondi, at this time, that wasn't considered. We figured that would be a question raised. I think at this point, we would come back to council if this is approved. We go through the process, and once we get some submissions, we would come back with council and kind of get direction. What would we do with that funding? Could it be to pay it back? Does it go to something else? I think those options. I don't think it's kind of premature right now to make that decision. But we are aware. I know Director Jusevich, that's something we would bring back to council. Do you want to pay back, or is it half and half? What a percentage could be? But we definitely come back with council for direction.
Thank you very much. And then just one more in regards to the study that we're looking to do. Will that just be on a library, gym, storage, washrooms? Or will we look at other uses? Because I know I have had a couple of people say, you know, there's no activities for kids to do, but there are gyms that we can rent. I've heard more from the residents of Harrow Colchester for pickleball courts, and that's not in here. So I'm wondering if the need is not so much for a gym, because we can rent gyms from the grade school that's there for those activities. Will this survey or study that you're going to do, will that include different options, or are we just looking at an addition of a library, gym, storage, washroom, meeting room, etc.?
Mayor Bondi, so those are just some examples of what a 14,000 square foot footprint would be able to accommodate. But the park master plan specific to that location would take all those outdoor amenities into consideration. So we know that so for example, where would that addition be best located? So working with the very preliminary, but is it best to come off and cut into the tennis court area and relocate the tennis courts throughout somewhere else on that green space? So that's what this plan is going to essentially work out. So knowing that the tennis courts are in accordance with the master plan, the tennis courts are not in very good shape out there, so we'd have to redo them anyways. So that might be our opportunity to build pickleball courts onto those specific pickleball courts onto those existing courts.
Much, Director Morissette. The last thing is, we've all been in the arena. Will this study that we're doing, will that also include updates that I'm sure that arena needs, for one, lighting, and maybe upgrade the paneling that's in there? Will that include any of that, or is it just looking at moving around or tennis courts, basketball courts, and in addition? Or will this also include the updates that the arena needs?
Through you, Mayor Bondi. So it would be, the intent of the master plan would be the outdoor space, not the indoor space. We are doing building condition assessments as part of our strategic plan to identify what needs to be done in all of our facilities. So that is something we're doing separate to that as indoor. The Parks Master Plan is more of a big picture concept plan for what we can do in the future.
Counselor Mady and Counselor Garen.
Just to Councilor McGuire Blaze question, as Director Morris had said, what's recommended here is kind of the green space. But as per council strat plan, one of the things is to look at all our town facilities and better usage. And that's the discussion we've had is we have a lot of standalone facilities. Is there opportunities to combine to create synergies, right? For cost savings. So that will happen naturally from this process. So we are aware of that as well. And it's part of their strat plan.
Through you, Madam Mayor. The request for a proposal, Director Chadwick, you had said that ultimately it would be up to council. Are we going to see that request for proposal before it actually goes out?
You, Mayor Bondi, yes. So unlike other RFPs that are truly through administration, this we would come back to council with some recommendations based on research. What do you want for affordable housing in terms of percentages? Do you want a multi-res? Do you want commercial? So we would come back to council with direction on kind of what your goals are. So then we could put it in the RFP and see what the development community can come back with.
Thanks to you, Mayor. Yeah, that's kind of what I was going to touch on. I'm hopeful we're going to see that before it goes out. We'll all have some input on it. I took the report, library, gym, storage has a way of showing some amenities that we could be doing, not anything in stone. I think that master plan will drive what the needs of Harrow, Colchester are. But it gives us an idea of what it would cost to do something at a 14,000 square foot. So I think it's good. I mean, I think when we purchased the school, like Mayor Bondi said, the main thing was to get that green space, not get landlocked. And I think the next step is going to be important and could take some time, but I think we'll get a lot of people interested in that property.
Have one question and then one comment. That master plan, is it going to incorporate the soccer park? Because, for example, we may want to move pickleball or tennis over to the soccer complex. So are we going to look at it? Because that space is really underutilized.
Mayor Bondi, so that's my intent, is to do that. I've got some ideas that I want to bounce off those consultants whenever they're hired, but yes, it would be, we may not get a full concept design of the soccer complex per se, but we might get some ideas of, okay, smaller amenities that may not be the community wants, but may not fit on this footprint. We could use that as
Have a request from administration and council to see if what we're dealing with right now is in McGregor, there's a apartment going up, and it's a very much a culture change, and residents in McGregor are constantly reaching out to Councillor Kim Verbeek and myself because it's development and it's change. I'd like to have an open house with council there in Harrow because we're a ward system. Sometimes council members don't really always visit other wards for all the things that happen. So I'd like to see, because this is a major decision, especially if we're talking about affordable housing or a multi-residential and a high-rise, I'd like to see a public open house in Harrow to hear back from residents, folks like the Fair Board saying, okay, what do we want to have a high-rise? Do we want to have townhomes? Because I'd rather hear from the public before we go into the request for proposal rather than hear from them after. So that's my request, and hopefully we can have that. So I'm looking for a motion if there's no other comments from council. The recommended action that community services report be received and that council direct administration to proceed with a request for proposal process where interested developers can provide proposals to the town of Essex's plans for future high density residential development, and that council approved $20,000 for a new capital project entitled Harrow and Colchester South Community Center or Community Park Master Plan be funded by the Development Charge Reserve. And looking for a mover and a seconder for that. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor Verbeek, all in favor? And that is carried. Reports from our youth members. Youth member Lauren Smith.
I have nothing tonight.
Mr. McGuire Blaze, did Colin leave you one? No? Okay. All right. County Council update. Deputy Mayor Shepley?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you. Essex County Council approved proceeding with a 5-year contract with the Medusa ESO Medical for $1.1 million plus HST with an option to extend it for up to 5 years. The company will provide software for electronic ambulance call reports, records management forms, community paramedicine, medical records, and data analysis. The software includes situational awareness dashboard that shows the level of service in the region in real time. The dashboard helps alert the EMS leadership team to impending surges and allows it to make quick decisions to support paramedics in the field, which will be hopefully help us with the roadblocks we're having. We also at County Council adopted the tax ratios for 2024 that include a removal of discounts for excess commercial and excess industrial vacant land. The removal of this discount put up a 30% for commercial land and 35% for industrial land will affect 607 properties and reduce the tax levy burden on the taxpayers. And says, council, oh, sorry, I lost my spot. That has an effect of lowering the residential tax increase for 2024 to 4.81%. That's my county council update.
Looking for a motion that we receive the county council regular meetings listed in agenda item 12 be received. Moved by Councilor McGuire Blaze, supported by Councilor Guerin. Any questions to those or Deputy Mayor? All in favor? And that is carried. Correspondence to be received. 13.1, looking for a motion that all correspondence listed in agenda item 13.1 be received and were indicated to further share. And so we'll get a motion to receive and support. And then if we want to pull out a particular correspondence, we can. Moved by Councilor McGuire Blaze, supported by Councilor Allard. Any questions? All in favor? And that is carried. Now, Councilor Verbeek, did you want to pull out one? Okay, which one?
Yep, through you, Madam Mayor, 13.1.3, and it's from the County of Renfrew. And I'm just going to ask for support that we send letters to the province, to the federal government, to the county, to our MPP Liardi, our MP Lewis, and our neighboring municipalities. And if you want to hear it, I'll ask the clerk to read because I'm losing my voice.
Hello, do you have that handy? Okay.
So the council would like it to go to everybody who the county of Renfrew has sent it to, including the Minister of Infrastructure, the Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs, Infrastructure and Communities of Canada, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks, the Parliamentary Assistant to the Minister of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, AMO, Roma, and FCM.
Councilor Mady, any questions? All in favor? And that is carried. Committee meeting minutes. Looking for a motion that the committee meeting minutes listed in agenda item 14, together with any recommendations to council noted therein, be received and approved and adopted as circulated. I want to make sure that members of council are aware that the finance committee meeting minutes are in there. Where we are officially approving our 2024 grants for the Community Partnership Fund. Needing a mover and a seconder. Councilor McGuire Blaze, Deputy Mayor Shepley, any questions? All in favor, and that's carried. Now we are on to, there's no new business that was brought to my attention tonight, and I will go to notices of motion. We will go to our clerk, Director Malandruplo.
Mayor Bondi, through you. The following notice of motion was presented at the February 5, 2024 regular council meeting and is being brought forward this evening for council's consideration. Moved by Councilor McGuire Blaze that the bollard outside 114 Talbot Street North, the one to the west of the parking lot entrance, be removed and a sign that says parking lot entrance be installed and no parking lines be painted at the entrance to the parking lot.
By Councilor McGuire Blaze, looking for a seconder, and then we will speak to it. Seconded by Councilor Allard. Councilor McGuire Blaze, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you, through the chair. So I did send some photos, but I didn't see them in the package. Oh, here they are being pulled up. So this is the area that we're talking about. So the bollard that's right there in front of the vehicle on the left, the furthest left of the screen, that's the one that I'm suggesting that we remove and potentially place a sign just closer to the tire of the car that says parking lot entrance. The businesses have reported that people are parking in this area thinking it is a parking spot. It does look like a parking spot. The businesses, people who are parked in the parking lot to the right of this picture have had to wait a long time, some up to 2 hours, to get out of the parking lot because this is the only enter and exit that you'll be able to see that they can use. So if a patron is in the Legion or visiting with somebody who's upstairs in one of the apartments, they're kind of stuck in there. So as you can see, the light post on the right is actually, it looks like it's inside of the parking lot space. So the parking lot entrance, I'm sorry. It's a very narrow entrance. And I think that to appease the business owners who are there, the lot owner who has the parking lot, it's a free parking lot for anybody to use. Painting the lines, putting up like this is a parking lot and removing the bollard will help with those businesses and help people not park in front of a driveway. Thank you.
I am in agreement. I think it's a good move. Any comments from members of council or questions to administration? Councillor Allard.
Through the chair, just one question on the location. Is the car in the parking lot entrance or is the parking lot entrance in front of the car where the sign would go? Because the sign would go in front of parking entrance.
So the parking lot, the sign for the parking lot, I'm suggesting it would be up to, I think administration would have to make the decision, but to the left of the current bollard that's there. So remove that bollard, just put it a little bit to the left. So it would be in front of or just around the front tire of that vehicle that you see. Right now, the parking lot entrance is between the bollard and that light post. So that's the parking lot entrance. And you can see the painted lines for the end of the parking space. So really, when a car is parked right at the front of the parking lot line, someone coming out of that driveway has to go between the front of that car at the top of that parking lot line and the light post. It's just really tight, really narrow. I think it would help everybody out if we do all or some of these changes.
And the cost for this, how is it being assumed?
Through the chair. Yeah, so typically, we don't sign parking lots or parking lot entrances. It adds to sign pollution and it sets a precedence. However, there were painted lines prior to the Essex streetscape being completed. Those are planned to be reinstated in the spring when the weather is suitable to paint lines. So the painted lines that were there before, which are like cross-hatch lines, will be there, which will identify it as a non-parking space. The cost to remove the bollard, we did inquire with the contractor, is with tax $1,615. If council wants to proceed with this, we would just need a simple resolution through this motion and we could cover that cost through project contingency. So that's up to council, but I would recommend not signing it for now. And if we find that this isn't working, then maybe we take other additional measures that maybe we can take. Madam Mayor, I just had a question. I'm looking at, I grew up here and there's an entrance or an exit at least as far as I can remember, and I'm looking on the Google map here, there is exits from all those parking lots from the backside. Did they close it or so? Was that closed to the, because it shows on the map. I just was curious because I was not aware that they closed that off.
Thank you. So through the chair, they did close it off. I think it's two separate landowners, the front and the back, and they've closed it now with large decorative rock. So you cannot exit that parking lot
at all. The only enter and exit is from that space.
Thank you for clarifying. I was not aware that that had happened. I appreciate that.
To Mayor, to Director Gerard, where the car was parked in that picture, it's curb there, is it not? So there's if there's a curb there, the only entrance is where from the bollard to where the next building is. It's a drive there, correct?
That's correct. And the entrance itself, regardless of the placement of the post and the bollard, was put back in place to the way it was prior to the streetscape. So the width of the entrance itself is the same as it was before. The difference now, obviously, is that there's a transition of curbs in that area as well. But the entrance is the same as it was before the streetscape.
And further to that, then the actual bollard itself, they're served a couple of things for us, right? Is there another one in the next space? Because I can't see like where the cars parked. Is there another one? Can it be moved? Do we need it to serve a purpose?
Chair. So that bollard is placed for safety reasons. So in that area it is a mountable curb. So it's not a barrier type curb. So although there's no parking in this section up on top of the curb for grading purposes, we had to install a mountable curb. That's the intention of the bollard, is to protect pedestrians from patrons parking or driving. This particular bollard, because it's not in the Flex Street portion, which is from Victoria to Laird, is not removable. It is not a removable bollard. It's permanent. That's the reason. If it was a removable bollard, we could simply just remove the bollard and leave it as is. However, this one is permanently cemented into the ground.
And so it doesn't really necessarily serve any more purpose than that, the safety thing of, because let's go back to the sign thing that Councilman McGuire was referring to. We wouldn't put it up. It's not a public parking lot. It's a private parking lot. They could apply for a permit to put a parking sign up if they wish, right? I would assume.
Yeah, I would have to follow any of our applicable sign bylaws and be an application through our development services team.
From members of council. So are we permanently removing the bollard? Or are we relocating it?
Through the chair, the cost that I mentioned of just over $1,600 is the cost to remove it only, not to replace.
Thank you. So the motion is on the floor, but Director Gerard said we should have the cost covered in the project contingency fund. So I'm wondering if that can be part of the motion. The $1,600 coming out of the project contingency fund, if that is okay with council. We have to fund it from somewhere, give direction. Any further comments? Oh, and be removed in a sign that says, okay, what do we want to do with the part of the motion that is the sign? Do we want to come back to that later? Is that okay? Okay. All in favor of the motion? That is carried. Did you not know what the motion was? Okay. All right. The motion was that we remove the bollard with the 1,600 coming from our project contingency or project overrun underrun fund, and that we revisit the sign later. Paint the lines, and we're painting the lines. Yep. Okay. All right. Director Malandrujo.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. Through you, the following two notices of motion are being presented tonight only for presentment and will be brought forward at the March 4th regular council meeting for consideration. Notice of motion number 1, moved by Councillor Mady, that town administration prepare a comprehensive report that compares watertight manhole covers to standard manhole covers by completing the following. Number 1, initiate a study. Conduct a study to assess the feasibility and benefits of watertight manhole covers in our specific context. Number 2, conduct research. Review studies, collaborate with professional networks, and review municipal practices to determine the feasibility of standardizing watertight manholes. And number 3, report submission, present the comparative report to town council. Notice of motion number 2. Moved by Councillor Verbeek that council discuss ways to fund the remainder of money required to cover cost of shade sale for McGregor Playground.
In announcements from members of council, I think we started there, so we'll start here. Councillor Guerin.
Got to thank Mayor Bondi and Councilor McGuire Blaze for taking the initiative and rounding up volunteers and cleaning up our garbage and debris at the downtown core this past weekend. It's a level of service that we don't currently budget for, a little extra level of service, so it's appreciated. And I guess we can all do our part. You know, our public that's walking around our streets, our businesses that are, you know, have stores in our downtown core, you know, garbage sometimes lands in accidentally. So if you see it, there's garbage pails everywhere. Pick it up and please discard it. Thanks again. Appreciate it.
To report this evening, thank you.
And through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, it's Heritage Week. Come on out, take a look. We've got some great things in our municipality for you to see. Down in Colchester, the old schoolhouse, the Heritage Village with their free week of it's a wonderful place. There are tours, there walk around the yard. It's an awesome place to visit. Our train station here in center, our municipality is full of heritage. Please take this week to come and take a look at all of them. Thanks.
Nothing for me to report tonight, but again, I'll second what Councillor Guerin said. I saw you out there cleaning it up, and you don't see that in most towns, and I appreciate it.
Nothing this week.
Chester Bar on Saturday, March 2nd at 3 p.m. is holding their 9th annual Chili Challenge. Re-entry, join their Facebook and see what they have to offer.
Thank you through the chair. So I too want to thank all the volunteers who came out to help tidy up our downtown area. I do want to encourage every smoker out there to put your butts not in the grass. Butts do not break down, and it just makes the entire community look dirty and trashy, in my opinion. So I would encourage you to put your butts in an appropriate container and not on the grass. And if you're a business that has employees who are smoking on their break or lunch period, or you have patrons who come and they smoke between drinks, I would encourage you to encourage your patrons and your employees to put their butts in an appropriate container, because the amount of cigarette butts all of our volunteers picked up was astronomical. So if all of the smokers out there could do everybody in the community a favor and put your butts in the garbage or in an appropriate container, we would most greatly appreciate it.
There's quite a bit of chewing gum too. So butts and chewing gum, it was nasty. And so thank you to everybody that came out. It was kind of fun. It was chilly. We had about 14 students, so it was pretty awesome. So, and along with that, I'm doing a challenge myself, a bag a day, and I've done it for a little bit over a week now, and it's interesting the kind of things you're finding. Lots of drinking and driving out there in our municipality too. So lots of beer cans. So please don't drink and drive as well. Bylaws. Bylaw 2034 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the February 5th regular council meeting. Needing a mover and a seconder for bylaw 2304. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor Guerin, all in favor? And that is carried. Bylaw 2310 being a bylaw to appoint our deputy fire chief in the town of Essex. Looking for a mover and a seconder. That bylaw 2310 being a bylaw to appoint our deputy chief be read a first, second, third time. Finally passed. Councillor Verbeek, Councillor Guerin, all in favor, and that is carried. Bylaw 2309 being a bylaw to provide for the West Town Line Drain Bridge for M912069 County Road 11, which is Walker Road. Needing a mover and a seconder. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor Mady, all in favor. That's carried. Bylaw 2311 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the February 20th meeting. be read a first and second time and provisionally adopted on February 20th, moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor Allard. All in favor? And that is carried. I need a motion to adjourn. And just to remind folks watching, we have our second committee of the whole for this term, which is Monday from 4:30 to 6:30. You can watch it on YouTube Live. It's kind of fun and exciting, 15-minute rapid discussions on various topics. So move to adjourn. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor Mady, all in favor? Have a good evening.